to the third edition of Breaking Barriers, which is where I'm interviewing fantastic, inspirational women to talk about how they've stepped up in their leadership roles, to share stories of success and challenge. We love to celebrate the successes and learn from both that and the challenges, because that's where we get so much from. And so today I have got, I'm so delighted, the phenomenal, I'm a bit in love with Amanda, a lot in love, I should say, the phenomenal Amanda Werkheiser, who I was so fortunate to meet at the Lean In Leaders Conference in Palo Alto last summer. And we met and we kind of only chatted a little bit, but it's been over connecting afterwards and having calls and just learning about each other that I'm so in awe. And so just to let you know that, so Colonel Amanda is a senior leader in the United States Air Force. She's over 23 years of service as an intelligence professional. She's occupied strategic, operational, and tactical positions, including Squadron Command, where she led airmen across global locations. Of course, she's got numerous awards. She's demonstrated exemplary leadership and analytical prowess throughout her deployments in support of operations Enduring Freedom and Iraqi Freedom. And she's a continuous learner. She's an alumna of the University of Cambridge, Air Command and Staff College and Air War College. She's taught international relations, it just goes on, at the United States Military Academy. She's a published author, contributed to the School of Advanced International Studies Review and the Strategy Bridge. And she's really about mentorship, striving to assist service members to realize their professional goals. And she's also the nicest person you could hope to meet. So welcome, Amanda.
I think I'm going to take you anywhere I go to make sure that I'm introduced properly for the rest of my life. I will live off of that.
I'm there.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
And she's very kindly here from zooming in from Southern Virginia. So it's morning there. It's early afternoon here. And who knows what time it is whenever you're watching this. But welcome.
Thank you.
So there's so much to talk about, and I've already told her that we might need 4 episodes to cover it all. But we'd love to hear a bit about your story, like how you've got to this place and space in life that's mind-boggling for most of us mere mortals.
Well, thank you for that fabulous introduction. I'm honored to be part of the series and to speak to all of you. I'm very grateful for this experience. As we were talking earlier, I believe a lot in reflection, and I do that quite often throughout my career. So having the opportunity to reflect on my career in this way with these types of questions was really, really interesting and just such a positive experience. So I've enjoyed this, and I'm excited to tell my story. I would say I would have used to say that I have a very typical American childhood, but I think we've learned now at this point in our lives that we've all learned that there's no typical. There's just what's your experience. I was born and raised in Central California. That is just a normal schooling experience. When we go to university in the U.S., we pay for it, of course. So I ended up earning a scholarship with the Air Force. So I attended a school in Texas because I wanted to go to a university that was far from home. I wanted to go away and have that experience, to be on my own in a new environment. So I went to a school called Baylor University in Waco, Texas, which is a wonderful experience. I did a an Air Force program that is a training program. We call it ROTC. I did a reserve program. I commissioned out of university into the Air Force. And then at that point, once you start your Air Force career, it is, or any service career, for us, it's a lot of moving. So I've moved 11 times, and I love to see places around the world. So for me, it was a great fit for many reasons. One of them is just picking up and starting over every 2 to 3 years. I've really enjoyed that experience. So there's so many. I won't laundry list them all, but I had a lot more time in Texas and New York and Colorado and Hawaii, and we had mentioned the UK when I was able to work on my degree as well. So I've had some wonderful experiences in Netherlands as well.
Wow.
Yeah, and a couple repeats, Ohio, like everywhere. And then along with that, there's a lot of travel embedded wherever. So wherever I was stationed, I probably got on the plane and went to all sorts of places many times. And I love that about our service. We get to see the world and meet other people of other cultures and have those experiences. So that's kind of how I ended up serving.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And how have you climbed so high in leadership? Like you're at the dizzy heights there of seniority.
there are many higher than me, but I would say if you look at statistics, certainly I've stayed in longer than an average person, and also probably more narrowly more than most women, right? So I've stayed in longer than most women, and there's a lot of reasons why a career service is compatible for different lifestyles, and we can certainly unpack that later. But in my case, I fought to stay in longer, and there's definitely difficulties when you start to have a family, when you choose to share life with someone else, children, that sort of thing, aging parents. All of those things factor into, can I still continue this lifestyle of moving one every 2 or 3 years and starting over? And now putting a child in new school, and now making sure my spouse has a job nearby, and all of that. So there's a lot of difficulty. So how did I manage to hang in this long? It's a little bit of performance. So we don't want to undercut, our ability to perform well in our workplace. But there's also, can my partner and I make this work and continue what we want in our home life while being able to feel professionally fulfilled, right? That's sort of the balance. So it's a vague answer. We can dig into it a little bit more.
We will be digging into it because, like, obviously, I mean, a lot of people that know me and maybe follow me know that I've worked in very male-dominated industries, and we have in our chats been using the word industry, which is quite funny, thinking about yours as an industry, but it is.
It is, defense, sure, government service, yeah.
And so I'm like, I know, coming from engineering and manufacturing the way I have done, it's been very male dominated, but obviously probably to a greater extreme and more all-encompassing for you. So do you want to tell us a bit about what that experience has been like?
Yeah, it is, so the services, I don't have the exact percentage, but we'll say the different services, the Navy, the Air Force, the Army, the Space Force, Coast Guard, so on, they have somewhere between 15 to 20% women at any given time, roughly, right? And I don't know the exact numbers. So somewhere in there, usually the Air Force has a little bit more. So maybe we're 18 to 20 or something. It might have gone up a little bit. So yeah, it is definitely predominantly men. I would say within service, there's different career fields. And what's interesting, although all of them are open to women, they haven't been from the beginning, but they are at this point. Some of them continue to be more men than women. So depending on what type of assignment I had and where I was embedded, it was an experience of mostly to all men versus maybe more of a 40-60 split. So what I've found is the way that I dealt with that has evolved as I have gotten older. right? Some of that's experience, some of that's probably maturity, some of that is just maybe it has a little bit to do with the leadership. I think going from when I was very junior, I felt there was a little bit more. There were some personalities that were not checked in terms of thinking that women couldn't do everything that was asked of them in the job. So we saw some behavior there. But I was so young. I was in my early 20s. I didn't really have an awareness or tools to cope with that. So, you just sort of endure and you don't necessarily know how to check that. As I got more in middle of my career, and I had environments where I was around mostly men again, very, very technically proficient, very impressive human beings, but maybe culturally how they are together might not normally be how they are with other women. So not necessarily a negative situation, but just different. And I didn't feel connected. So I would say in the middle of my career, it was more about connection. I didn't feel that. So I go to work, have a wonderful time, but those aren't my besties, right? It's just, we don't have as much in common as you would think. So we can have a wonderful professional experience, but I felt like I was kind of still by myself in that, right? So, and then over time, as I get to be more of a senior peer, then I can start to reflect a little bit more. Maybe I picked up some tools on how to interact with people better. And then as I'm more senior, I can set the tone, right? So if I have 50 people working for me, I can set the tone on those kinds of behaviors and I can look out for it. So it's kind of an arc for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd love to hear how you set the tone then on those behaviors and what you support and accept and what you definitely don't.
Yeah, I think, well, certainly when you're a senior person in my piece of the organization, my small piece of the organization, when you have a woman who's a boss, there's certain things that aren't going to happen in front of you, right? So you're using sensors around your organization to be able to know whether there's issues that are being masked or hidden, right? So I'm not going to see it firsthand. I'm not going to be able to do a spot check because we're all adults and we know how to hide certain behaviors. I think there's no tolerance for that in service or in business, but yet it remains unchecked sometimes. So I think what I learned in a more senior position, maybe a couple prior to this one, where I saw inappropriate behavior, very inappropriate comments from a person. And I knew what to do with that. I knew that I felt uncomfortable, and I actually knew and felt comfortable to go to the right people that were either the supervisor or maybe a contract lead or something like that. Whereas I think early in my career, I don't think I had those tools to do it. So I think what I can do now is educate. If you have a person with underperformance, unprofessional behavior, this is what you do. And this is what you do if it's someone in uniform, because we have mixed organizations. It's not all uniform, right? Uniform, civilian, maybe a contract person. There's different status of people, and they all have different levers of both performance and incentives, right? And you have to understand that. So as a leader now, what I can do is know those levers, and I can educate others and say, you're a supervisor of people of different types who come maybe from a company or are in uniform. Make sure you know how to check that behavior. And I think that education piece is what I have to offer. But I can also be an ally, right? As we learn through the Lean In, I can be an ally for others. So if I feel in a meeting, whether I'm the senior person or I'm at the table but not the senior person, I can still speak up on behalf of someone, and I can still make sure that that person's voice is heard, and I can reinforce at the table. I actually like what Joe over here said. I'd like to hear more about that. Could we go back to his comments, right? So I can be an ally as well.
I love that. And that's something we can all do. Yeah, you don't need to be the most senior person in the room to change behavior. It's having the courage to call it out and say, and just speak up. Like, how many times have we walked out of something and gone, oh, I wish I would have said something there, but I was too afraid. We did touch on a little bit about, like, obviously you've moved 11 times and having a family. Like, I'm sure you've had to make some extremely difficult decisions and put lots of things in place to manage that. So what's that been like for you?
So it is, a lot of people won't relate to this type of lifestyle, but I will describe it. I am just about to hit 15 years of marriage at the end of the month. So within that time, I, if you added up all of our time apart, because my partner is a service member as well, we're both active duty, which is even less common, right? It's not uncommon, but it's not as typical. If you added up all of our time apart, I think it's like 6 years or something like that. Cumulative, not consecutive. So what does that look like? One of us is a deployment for a year. Maybe 1 year, both of us deployed. So that worked out before children. One of us had to go to a professional development course because in the military, they'll send you to a school for a year to educate. So you read some of those out earlier. So our timing is off. And because my partner and I are in different services, that when that happens in your career is slightly different as well. So if he has to go to a year in Kansas while I'm in Colorado, that's another year apart, right? If I have to go to Alabama while he's in Hawaii, then he wins, right? Because that sounds amazing. Yeah. But I think actually I really enjoyed Alabama, but there are things like that add up. And then sometimes it's not just a year of training. Sometimes it's just we can't get you both to the next developmental job in the same location. And as you become more senior, it's more difficult. What I often get is, oh, you're this career field. That's at every installation. You could go to any base. That's not true. And I think we all know that probably on the corporate side. As you get more senior, every location of your organization does not have a job for a senior person. That's just not how it works. And so it gets tighter. And you're starting to look at single digit numbers of places that you could both go to continue to advance and also be fulfilled, right? So then you're starting to make choices about, well, who's going to lead? Whose career are we going to let take the development job? And who's going to just follow and do sort of a marking time job, just to be in place. It doesn't hurt them, doesn't help them, just sort of a generic job. Doesn't mean we can't have value, doesn't mean we can't enjoy it. But then you start to make choices. So I would say there's a lot wrapped up into this when it comes to, so that I just spoke on the professional side, like making sure that we get you to positions that you can advance, but also on the personal side, when you and your partner sit down and say, well, whose career is more important to advance and who's not, those are hard conversations, especially if you are highly successful individuals, which we both are. That's a tough call, right? Like, who's better? Some people, there are factors that weigh in that it's an easy choice. Maybe it's the woman whose career they follow. Maybe it's the man. Maybe there's other interests that one of them has that they want to pursue and it works out. But in our case, we both love service. We love service. So we just have to go assignment by assignment and say, well, is it going to help you? But it would help me. And so negotiating that, whose career leads, that's important. And I won't say it's been negative, it's constructive, but if you step back and say, wow, you've had to make choices that maybe will tank your career, but don't necessarily advance it. Those are discussions that we've had to make together while allowing each other room to decide when we're done with service. So I'm not going to tell him when I think he should be done, nor he me. But we certainly, we certainly have to negotiate sometimes.
It sounds like there's a lot of negotiation there. But I'm guessing because you both love it, you both get it for each other, but that doesn't necessarily make it easy when
doesn't make it easier.
An opportunity, and
it does. On the one hand, you don't have to explain it to a partner who doesn't have those pressures. So we understand what certain pressures are like. We've had similar experiences in that way. It is wonderful to have a partner in the same sort of business because we can come home and joke about things that happened at one office or the other. and the other gets it immediately. And when when you've chosen your partner for life and you can come home and laugh about some ridiculous thing that happened, I mean, what's better than that?
Yeah.
But but at the same time, you still have to make choices. And I think the ultimate choice for us, which probably will go down another path of discussion, is when they offered me a development, which is for us the most significant thing you can do at a certain point in your career as a command. And that's wonderful experience, and it's an honor to be entrusted with airmen in that way. They offered me that opportunity in a place that my husband could not go and could not be anywhere near for multiple hours away. And so then he got an assignment overseas. So we were on different continents. So that is sort of the extreme version where we both ended up getting offered like pinnacle moment jobs in our career.
Wow.
And what do you do? What do you do? What's the right thing to do? Fulfillment versus family. But does it have to be versus? Can there be something that makes sense for your family that maybe wouldn't be how other people would do it? And that's what we found our middle ground.
I'm guessing like that's, it's such a different life for you. And so I know, you have a son, so he's obviously had to figure in decisions, and maybe you've made decisions that other people don't understand because how do other people respond to them, and what's that kind of decision making like?
There, as you can imagine, many people have opinions about how we should go through our lives. So it does not change when you are a uniform wearing military person. Everyone will still have opinions about that. So, when you have a child, are you going to stay in? Who's going to care for the child? My parents both worked. So for me, this is an obvious solution. I will go to work, but it's not the same for everyone. And that's fine. I believe in us having choices, and because it becomes so difficult, many times one of the partners will get out to be able to bring stability to the household and make sure that the children have consistency, routine, and stability, which I completely respect. Some will even school their children at home versus putting them in school, so they have a more consistent experience in their childhood, which I think is admirable. In our case, we both wanted to work. We have a very amenable child who is used to our lifestyle. He's used to one of us having a work trip here and there, and his personality is suited to this lifestyle, we'll say. So it is his normal that one of us is always traveling, whether it's a trip or one of us is stationed apart. I won't say he loves it, but he is used to that. The biggest decision I think for us is when he was younger, when we had these opportunities presented to us to have fulfilling jobs in different continents. The choice was then, which parent does the child go with? So we made a choice to do a 2 years apart to be able to be professionally fulfilled, which is important. Which person will you go to? And a lot of assumptions were made at that time that it should be the mother. And I would say in service, you often see men who will leave the family in one location, whether the spouse is working or not, and they will go do a year of training and come back, right? That's not uncommon. You don't see it as often when a woman does it. And this is what happened, right? So we decided that my partner was going to be the better parent because he did not have the amount of travel and burden that I would have in my other job. My other job, I was traveling twice a month, like 25, 26 trips a year. It was all over the world. So it was very, very busy. And it would have just equated to full-time childcare, whereas my spouse was home every night, very few trips, and although had certainly had some limited childcare, was able to be the parent. And to us, that was the most important thing. So we made the choice based on the child's needs, and I think he's better for it. I'll pause there.
I mean, that was a no-brainer decision, really, but I've no doubt, because people do have opinions, and nobody bats an eye at a man working away or doing what's needed for their role. But yeah, those questions and that sort of raised eyebrow towards women doing it, and it's a nonsense.
Yeah, it was. I did get a lot of questions and comments about it. A lot of I won't say no one ever said anything directly to me, but it was quite clear that many would not have made that choice and were projecting that on me. So I just sort of laid off some of those relationships and said I didn't need that energy at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I found that, sorry, there's literally jets flying overhead, so I apologize for the sound. I found that I was embraced. The people who worked for me, which, again, in command is where you're the senior person in the organization, the people who worked for me were the most supportive of them all. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something we've talked about in our previous conversations, is like the importance of those relationships and connection, because, lots of us in the corporate world can go on different assignments and be sent to different places or whatever, but it's so frequent for you, and you need that camaraderie and support and connection with people. So how important has having those and building those relationships been for you?
Oh, essential. Like I had mentioned earlier, I had a more awareness in the middle of my career. So maybe we'll say about 10 or 12 years in, that I felt disconnected from other women officers or just women in service, really any rank, where once you kind of break through that halfway point, we call it, like halfway to 20, but once you kind of break through that and you're in, we'll say, middle management, that's when people start to drop off. That's when people start to make life choices. That's when we're having families. That's when we're maybe choosing to go back to school and try a different direction, maybe choosing to stay in one location instead of being moved regularly, right? So there's different reasons to stay put. That's usually a decision point. And for me, at that point, when you start to see the numbers of women drop off a little bit for all wonderful, valuable reasons, I felt less connected. So I started to reach out and just reach out and connect with people. Maybe it was through we used social media to make sort of women forum discussion groups, which has been wildly successful, and able to do spin-off sort of regional locations on that. So that was a big, wonderful thing that many of us were able to do together. Like even now, I sat in a meeting for my boss on his behalf, and it was the big bosses, and which I don't do that often, but every once in a while they need me, right? So I'm in there in the big chair at the big table with the big important people, and there's like 2 women, right? And it doesn't mean that's what the staff looks like. It's just how it was that day. And directly across the table from me was this woman I had never met, of the same rank. She was positionally more senior to me, but of the same rank. So I literally went back to my office and I wrote her and I said, I don't know you, but I feel like we should know each other. And she wrote back, and we are the best of buddies now. Like I connect to her constantly. Like we just, and it was the same thing where I've never had a woman turn me down when I've asked to connect with them and just say, I want to get to know you. I want to hear your story. Now, do I have junior people reach up now on mentorship? Because as you get more senior, you have that separate discussion there. Of course I have that. And mentorship is a whole nother discussion for me. But on the peer level, I think everyone should always have a peer group. I think that's what really sustained me. So when I was in command, I loved my male commanders and my women commanders. But we are all geographically around the world. So we didn't all see each other. But I did find there were a handful of us women in that position, in that role at the same time. Some of them related to my actual experience as well, which is interesting. And so we had a connection, and we met virtually regularly. So I think that peer group is what really made me a better commander, right? Obviously you have a phone a friend when you need it, but so I continue that at every assignment. I find those peers and I connect. Sometimes they're men, sometimes there's women. But when I see a woman who's a peer somewhere in an organization who I've not met, I generally will go over and walk or follow up with a note and say, I didn't have a chance to meet you, but I just really want to. Let me know if you want to get coffee. So I do that all the time.
I love that. and how lucky they are to have you reach out to them. But yeah, I mean, that resonates, I think, across any industry as well. I mean, it's one of the things that was the spark for me. We'll do both. So I have two programs. One's the Career Elevator to help women step up, and the other is a leadership mastermind. And the real reason for doing that was because so few women have those peers, and sometimes it's about not having somebody in your direct team. It's somebody outside, and those people that you can connect with and be soundboards and understand what's going on and give you a different perspective and make you feel, you know, supported, all of those things. And so that's fantastic. So you actively create that wherever you go, and then you have like your core your core people.
I would love to build on what you just described and say everyone needs someone to vent to, and you can't vent to your direct reports, right? I may love that guy that works for me or that gal, but that's not the person to do that to, right? I need to have a peer somewhere else who can relate and listen. Whether they give advice or not, it doesn't matter. But you're not going to vent to your boss. You're not going to vent to your direct reports. You're not going to vent to the more junior person who's administratively taking care of you. Nope. You got to have someone else. And once I've found that in those positions, whether you're friends or not, you still need to have a connection. And again, it could be men or women. Right now, my peers, both in rank and somewhat in position, are men. And I have the best time at work. But I reached out and made the connection, and we've all found we have so much in common, and we laugh at the same things, you know, silly things that happen at work. And, you know, we can, on the hard days, lean on each other and all that stuff. You know, can you help me out? Can you take this meeting or sort this out? Sure. Absolutely. Right. And I think that's what it's all about. You got to have that peer connection to help.
Love that. Something that we'd talked about in the previous conversation was, you know, I'm doing this piece of research into women breaking through and stepping up to leadership roles. And one of the things that's coming back repeatedly is a lack of sponsorship. So somebody making those moves, helping you to find the opportunities, you know, go beyond mentorship. And so what's been your experience of mentors, sponsors? Have you had them? What have you had to do for yourself in the absence of them?
Yeah. I think that my perspective on that has changed over my career. Early in my career, I didn't have the awareness of the importance of that. I think all of us will tell junior people, find a mentor, you know, all that stuff. But then it kind of turns into a junior person asking you, tell me how I should live my career. Tell me what to do to be successful like you, or something like that. And it should be more than that. It should be a little bit of a conversation, and what do you need to fulfill your goals, not just what did you do to get it right. Right. So there's that. But I think when I was more junior, I did not have those things. I had people I worked for that were great. And whenever there was an opportunity to sign up to be matched to someone senior in my career field, I took that. Right. And I appreciated those conversations. Usually they were more about leadership development as opposed to the gender dynamic. But it's, you know, those are just things I maybe didn't ask about, or they had some things they wanted to express to me or impart to me, which I valued deeply. As I got more aware, maybe after 10 years of those things, I started to notice where, and this is a whole discussion point within my sort of world, you know, when you have sponsors that are very successful and they're bringing people along who they are investing in to be able to have a certain path to get to leadership positions, it makes sense. But it's frustrating when you don't have one, right? So you can see it happen for others. You can see barriers removed for others, whereas maybe my personal life might have constrained me to some jobs. If someone in a similar situation had barriers removed and they accommodated, it's frustrating when it's not widespread. So I've observed it. And I try and turn it around and be that for others now. But I don't know that I've had a sponsor my whole career. I think in my latter half of the career, I've had great supervisors and who I've kept in touch with more, who have advocated when I've asked. Perhaps when I have not asked as well, that might have happened as well, and that would be wonderful. But I think I didn't understand how to ask for that advocacy until I was more senior. I didn't have the maturity to ask for that because I didn't really, maybe it's a little bit, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but maybe I also didn't realize that was something you could do. So I think I learned that over time.
Yeah, I think that's key because I think something I've witnessed with women is we're very much trained to keep pushing through and to be doing and performing and proving yourself. And there's not so much there in how to make the ask, that it's okay to actually ask for this help, support, and how to do that and who you should be asking and how you go about that. And so it's something I'm really passionate about, too, that we keep pushing that actually it's okay. And that's where the relationship building comes in, that you build these key relationships and you build it beyond that. You don't be afraid to make the ask, and if it's a no, then it's a no, but you don't know until you do the ask.
Yeah, nothing's changed, just because you.
Yeah. And I really love that you were
asked,
using. Oh, sorry.
No, yeah.
I was just going to say that you're using that as it's made you change how you support others and sponsor and mentor others. We're coming up to the end of the time here, so I'd just love to ask, are there any things you've learned from your leadership journey, from mentoring, supporting others, that you think actually this would be helpful for other women to know as they navigate theirs?
I mean, so many things. I'll say a couple of them. One, there is nothing about this. The way my life has turned out is not how I would have designed it. Like when I was a young person, I would not have sat down and written out, year one, right? And then written in 11 moves and written in a complex sort of home environment with different dynamics, right? But that doesn't mean that it was bad. It was good. And I don't regret any of it. And there were wonderful things that came out of it, and I'm better for it. So I would say, whatever your plan is early in your career, it can change. That's okay. At one point I had done the paperwork to get out of service because of circumstances. And then there was a technicality that said, well, you could get out, but under these stipulations, and they were making it complex. And I thought, I'll just stay a little longer. And here I am, right? 23 plus years, right? That was about the 10-year mark. And it was, that I wouldn't have designed it, but, that's fine. The plan changed. Yeah. And I think I mentioned earlier, I reflect regularly. So with me, there's natural places to do it because I'm moving every couple of years. So I'm reflecting at the end of an assignment. What did I learn? Who am I now? Did I give more than I got, at that, right? Did I give enough of me, or was it more a receive mode? And it's okay. I just want to acknowledge, did I take out of that assignment, or did I actually give back? And so I think about those things. I also reflect regularly, and I encourage people under me to, is this still the right place for me? Am I still feeling fulfilled? Am I doing this out of convenience? Am I just on autopilot and avoiding a decision that's bigger? Or do I really enjoy coming to work and feel like I'm making a difference, right? So I reflect regularly on those. I think you can't please everyone, right? I think we mentioned earlier, a lot of people are going to have opinions about how you're doing it wrong. A lot of it hurts, but there we go. I moved past it, and I kind of moved on to new people. And I think, our relationships evolve over time. I think we're aware of that. I don't have this circle from my high school days that I continue. I have one or two friends that have stood the test of time that I treasure deeply. But who I am has evolved, and I think who everyone is evolved.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are kind of some key ones. For me, it's sort of the most rewarding part is, giving back at the end. And what am I doing with all these things that I have learned and experienced? Am I making the institution better? Am I making things better? And for me, it's talking about these uncomfortable things. Like, nobody really talks about what it's like for a mom to, say, I'm going to live 2 years on a different continent than my child, but it's okay because it was right for my family. And there are other ways that I coped with that, but nobody talks about that. We should normalize these things. What's right for my family is between me and my spouse and my child. So I think talking about those and making it okay. And your career doesn't need to look like others. Yeah.
Oh, what a wonderful moment to end, because I couldn't agree more. We're all on our own journey, and somebody else's is right for them. Yours is right for you. And that's what's most important. So thank you so much, Amanda, for sharing your story, your insights. And I'm sure you've given people a lot to think about, but also more confidence to follow your own path and to make that unique way and to enjoy that that's yours. So we've got a few thank yous there for that being a really interesting session. So thank you.